All righty, Doug. Welcome back. It looks like we had audio problems.
Got video problems now.
We do? Oh, hold on one second.
Here we are.
There we are.
There we.
I had runaway music going on, and I'm not sure what happened, but I think Microsoft released probably an update like the last time, and it drives my screens crazy when that happens. Good old Microsoft. They know how to torture my life.
You got to love Bill Gates, but he's not around anymore. So
He's not around. Well, he kind of is. They say he's the mover and shaker with Microsoft's AI initiatives. They're over there, playing footsies with Sam Altman and OpenAI, and of course they're battling, of course, Elon Musk and his quest for AI, on the Tesla
all right.
side. So, and I know Apple's trying to play a little bit of catch up in that regards as well. So, you know, I pretty much right now the way my viewpoint with regards to AI is that it's a little bit of a wet dream, so to speak. Uh, we're not talking about AI like in the science fiction, the HAL, was it HAL
Mm,
2000? This AI
or
is just basically a higher version of search and all run by mathematical algorithms. And it kind of makes
yeah.
the non intelligent look intelligent.
Well, put it this way: we're kind of ways away from Bishop. If you remember Bishop, in AI, right?
Yeah,
Bishop was the guy on the sequel to the Aliens movie, Aliens,
right.
that saved the day. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of crazy, the way I was telling somebody last night, if I'm a college professor or a teacher, and I know that for the entire semester you haven't been able to place or put together two coherent sentences, and you turn in a research paper or any kind of paper at the end of the semester, and it's practically a
Hmm.
masterpiece, I'm going to know that you cheated. you know, I mean, I remember, Doug, back in the old days, I mean, my best friend was the copy machine and the Cliff Notes, when you used to go to the college
Right.
bookstore
Yeah.
and buy the Cliff Notes, for the
Yeah.
books that you had to read, for a particular class.
That guy died the other day.
He did.
Yeah. He
Wow.
was like 80 some years old. Yeah, I saw that.
Wow. Well, I tell you
Yeah.
what, I bought several of those, I don't regret it, not at all. There was just, a lot of these college professors, for some, especially the history classes and the political science classes. I mean, you had anywhere from 6 to 10 books you had to read, you know. I mean, God knows how many Stephen Ambrose based, historical books I have in the garage, you know. You're familiar with Ambrose, right?
Band of Brothers. Yeah. Pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. No, he's good. He's a good author.
Is he
Yeah.
still alive?
Yeah. No, he died a number of years ago.
Yeah. Oh, I remember I
Yeah.
had to read a ton of his books. One of my college professors was a big
As a matter of
Ambrose.
fact, what I'm doing right now, okay, is there was an Apple TV series. It's a TV series on Apple right now called, Manhunt. And
Uh-huh.
it's a story of John Wilkes Booth, killing Lincoln and trying to get, and the escape. He was
The
out on
Great
the lam
Escape.
for 12, well, he was out on the lam for 12 days before they got him, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so it was based on a book called Manhunt. And so I read that book, Manhunt. Very good book, very, very detailed. And Bill O'Reilly did one called Killing Lincoln about 10, 15 years ago. and I read Manhunt, and then I'm rereading Killing Lincoln by Bill O'Reilly, and I'm trying to compare the how both authors are.
Now, do you
Okay.
think that, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories that, Wilkes actually escaped and survived into the early part of the 20th
No,
century? You think that was, there's any truth to that?
no, no. There's no truth to that. No, they got his body. I mean, his body is buried in. I think they did a DNA search a while. They tried to do a DNA search a while back, a couple of years ago, and I think the surviving family wouldn't let them in the tomb.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, but that whole deal, there's a whole conspiracy deal. Seward was Secretary of State Seward. He was damn near killed. By Isarot there
yeah,
in not by Isarot, but Lewis.
yeah,
Stabbed to death, and then they were going to kill Andrew Johnson.
right.
And he was too. And the guy chickened out, and so there was a whole. And then I didn't know that. That old Jeff Davis. Had a place up in Montreal, Canada, that was like the spy haven, and he actually, the Confederacy actually gave him $1 million up there to either kidnap Lincoln or to kill him. Well, the original plot was to kidnap. Uh, Jeff Davis said, "No, no, no, we're not going to kill him." Okay, and then so they, Booth explored that kidnapping him, and then of course, so then the Civil War ended, and then, so Booth was on his own, so he says, "Hey, let's kill him."
And
So
was there any Secret Service protection or any kind of bodyguards back in those
no,
days?
no. So what happened was it wasn't even a Secret Service. The Wild Wild West. James West was part of the Secret Service. Okay,
Yeah,
during the Civil War, but no, the Civil War, the Secret Service didn't even exist. So what the deal was that Lincoln, poor old Abe and Mary Todd and Major Rathbone and his girlfriend, they went up to the booth, and then his bodyguard. Okay, that was kind of a last minute deal because Lincoln gave his most trusted bodyguard the night off. He went down to a saloon and had a drink, and one of the guys he drunk with was John Wilkes Booth.
wow.
And they didn't know each other, but they had a drink, and he was drinking down there, and then because he didn't want to go see the play American Cousins, so
Yeah,
that's what he did, and they just in a booth, he knew this. He performed there, so he knew the playhouse real well. Everybody knew him too, right? He could
yeah,
go anywhere because he was one of the actors.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well, we
yeah.
definitely are not here tonight to talk about John Wilkes Booth and the Lincoln assassination, even though I think it would be a great podcast to have here
I
down
would
the
like to.
road.
I would like to do a podcast on that, Danny.
Yeah, that would. Maybe we could also do a concurrent X Spaces audio feed as well. Get some
Yeah.
other
Yeah. Do
people
you
to come
have Do
on.
you have Apple TV?
I don't. No, I don't. I'm a Roku
Okay.
guy, but
Uh,
I'm
you
pretty
should
sure.
you
I'm
should
pretty
watch
sure
it.
I
You
can
should watch that series.
watch it on the iPad or the iPhone, couldn't I?
Yeah, you should watch that series. It's about 7 or 8 episodes. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
Pretty. It's just like the book. There's a couple things that aren't the same, but
right.
for the most part, it is.
All right, Doug. Well,
Book,
we're
book is
actually
very
here.
good.
We're actually here to talk about uh, some Apple product releases that occurred on Tuesday. We've got some exciting products that were released, and obviously we've got WWDC coming up here in the month of June, June 10th through the 14th, I think, or something like that. So, kind of give us a rundown of what actually was released, and then we'll flip over to the virtual theater and we'll, go through the virtual iPad on some of the products.
Yeah, this was kind of an unusual event because it had already been recorded, and they showed it at at exactly 9 o'clock Central Time or 7 a.m. Pacific Time, okay, or 10 o'clock Eastern Time. But and it started out with you know, Tim Apple comes out. He did his little spiel for about 5 minutes, and then they got right into the iPad Pro. And the iPad Pro, they showed the new iPad Pro. Uh, 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 they used to do 11.9. Now, see, yeah, now it's a 12.9. Now it's a 13-inch. They
Oh
do
wow.
11-inch and a 13-inch. Okay. And then they show the iPad Air, and they talked about that. And then they talked about the new, Apple Pencil Pro,
Right.
super duper pencil. You know, I think Steve Jobs might have been turned over in his graves when he saw that,
Man,
because
he's
he was always
probably
said that.
rolled several times with that pencil. You know,
Yeah,
he hated
yeah,
styluses. He swore
yeah.
he'd never have one on a phone.
And then they ended up with just the basic iPad,
Yeah.
and the basic iPad, is still. It's like the price is only like 349 or something like that, and I can remember paying $500 for the first iPad and $500 for the iPad 2
Yeah.
back in the day, 15 years ago. So that price has dropped
It is kind
considerably.
of
But
surprising, though, how styluses, and I'll use the word styluses, have really not caught on the phone side. I know that on the Android side, you've got uh, at least one phone on their product line that has a stylus, and Motorola, right behind them, also has one. But it's no other of the manufacturers on that side have really embraced the stylus any more than really Apple has. And I'm not sure why that is. I think, from an artist standpoint, from a you know note taking standpoint, I would think that it would be a great thing. I mean, I have, my fingers are not that thick, but I struggle trying to text sometimes. I misspell a lot of
right.
things. You know, I don't know why. Maybe the technology isn't there, taking transcribing. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. You know.
Well, text messaging and emails, I use voice quite a bit. I just
Yeah.
talk to it, dictate. Kind of hard if you're in a class or you're in a meeting and you can't be talking to your device in the meeting. You've got to be able to take notes,
Well, you
you
and I
know.
both worked at a place where the materials manager back in those days was hooked on his BlackBerry all the time.
Well, I remember that. Yeah, I remember the plant manager in Plant Four. I mean, I'd walk. I remember one time over in Matamoros, John and I was walking out to the paint shop, and he had his BlackBerry, and he was going through. God, you know, you could see his little thumbs just going through the BlackBerry while we were
It's
walking.
crazy.
He went through. I don't know how many emails he went real quick. So
I never owned a BlackBerry and I never used one. I know that a lot of people do miss the BlackBerry keyboard to some effect, the
I had a
physical.
BlackBerry when,
Yeah.
matter of fact, I think it was the first phone at work I got was a BlackBerry.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I remember that before the iPhones, that was like the phone that everybody was issued was a BlackBerry.
yeah, BlackBerry.
And of course, back in those days, that was the only phone that had that government super duper security, or if you recall, everybody else
Right?
didn't have that. Uh,
Yeah,
so
and
it,
some server in India or somewhere that they kept all that stuff. Everything was encrypted.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was kind of interesting, but let's go ahead and flip over to the other screen, and I've got the virtual iPad up and running. And as you mentioned, I think one of the big things was the release of a new pencil. As you can see, Apple released the little logo with the pencil there right in the middle.
Hmm.
And I could have sworn this thing did like a little animation, but It's not doing it now. But basically, what you're saying is that there was a new iPad Pro released, and apparently they're claiming that it's the thinnest Apple product yet and quite powerful. How thin is it, Doug?
It's pretty thin. It's only like they knocked another half a millimeter off of it. I saw a comparison today, and it's pretty thin. I mean, it's almost like a sheet of paper. I mean, it is
Wow.
really, really thin.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. I'm seeing it here. It's like
Yeah.
wow. And of
And
course,
less weight too, of course,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
Now,
But
apparently, it's extremely thin and it's 5.1 millimeters thick.
right, right.
Yeah, that's the, and
I think the other one was 5.5, something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
wow, wow. And then, of course, it comes with Ultra Retina XDR. It says it's
Yeah,
the,
talk about that a little bit. That's a OLED screen, not one, but two OLED screens placed on
uh-huh,
top of each other.
really?
Yeah, they had to get a certain amount of MEMS. Remember
Uh-huh,
that word, MEMS,
yeah,
brightness. And so that's the only way they could get that done, from what I understand, is that they had to put an OLED screen on top of each other. So you get two OLED screens on it.
wow. Wow,
Yeah.
well,
So
just by
the theory is that since the screen is so bright, when the old deal is that you go out in the sunshine, and let's say I want to take my iPad out to the pool, okay, you couldn't see the screen, right? Even
right,
today, I had trouble with my phone out at the pool because the sun was so bright I couldn't see it. Well, this is supposed to solve that problem. So if you're in a factory, or you're working outside, or whatever the case is, you can take your iPad with you, and you can see the screen out there. To say you go to the beach, the Kindle, of course, the Kindle readers, you can take those to the beach, no problem at all, right? They
right,
last forever. But for the true iPad, you couldn't take an iPad to the beach because you couldn't see the screen.
right.
But allegedly you can now.
Well, I can tell you that it is very annoying when you can't see the screen outside. I down at
Yeah.
Studio B outside, when I can't use my Dell XPS anymore because it's not behaving, but that one has a very high resolution screen. And I can't see diddly squat when it comes to using it
No,
down there because even if the sun's not out, it's just horrible. And so
it's horrible.
I had to end up
I
using an old HP matted screen laptop because I couldn't see anything, you know.
I can't on my iPhone. I'll be out, guys, when they take their significant other to the store, the significant other goes into the store, and you stay out in the car, right?
Right,
Okay. And I can't see the screen most of the time when she's at Walmart or whatever, when, and I have to like put my hand over it, or something, in order to, make a little visor in order to see it,
right,
you know.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. And then daylight. So,
And then
but hope.
of course the big thing is that it's going to have an M4 chip.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. That M4 chip. Okay. The old ones, I think the one you've got it still has, A4. Let's see. How old is your iPad Pro there?
It's older
Pretty
than
old,
dirt.
isn't it?
It's probably one of the first models.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think they had they skipped the M3 altogether.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they skipped it altogether. And the rumor is that when they launch the new iPhones this in the spring and September, they'll announce uh, with the M4 in it
Ah,
instead of a whatever it is, A16, whatever, whatever it is, but that everything's going to be eventually moved over to the M4. So
so
like
you're
the
not
new
going to
the
have any
studio,
more. Huh? Go ahead.
the Apple Studio is about ready for a notch up. Okay, it's I think right now they're like a M1 or M2. I think it
Yeah.
might be even be an M1. Okay, it's going to probably take a giant leap. It'll probably jump right up to M4. Later. I look for that to happen probably this fall.
Yeah.
Okay,
Now it
but
says
this
it's got powerful AI capabilities. What did they talk about that with regards to that?
well, I they showed some examples in their presentation that the you can certain games you play games on it and use it as a like a camera. It's now
Mm.
the big deal. You can use it as a camera. They've updated a camera on it and that, but um the graphics on it is so fast that they I think they still have the lidar in it, but I think I think they were trying to get it to help out sales on the Vision.
Uh, well, don't
Okay,
mention LiDAR to Elon because he doesn't like LiDAR.
no, he's doing everything with cameras. His self get navigation is all by cameras.
It is. I know. I
Yeah,
know.
yeah, and even his bishop or his alien guy, it's all done by cameras too.
Yeah.
And smoking Boston Dynamics, they used I think they used LiDAR or something like that. And, it's no comparison.
Now, what is this thing? Crush Pro workflows with the ease of iPad OS and amazing apps. I like when
Crush
Apple
Pro
starts
work.
using those words, those verbs. Amazing, beautiful.
Uh, they've always done that. Um, I remember back in the day, I had a Mac Mini, and it was the days before everybody went to SDs,
Yeah.
and they had a what the hell do they call that? Thunder Drive or Turbo Drive or something? They okay. You buy a Mac Mini, and they would allow a certain amount of space for an SD. The SD on it was only maybe less than a gig or something, and the rest
Yeah.
of it was optical,
Yeah.
and that was supposed to give you super duper speeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And they tried that for a while. I had
S-
one. I was
Yeah.
happy with it,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
So now we're at the all new Apple Pencil
Warp
Pro.
drive. I think they called it warp drive or
Warp
something like that.
Drive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're on the part about the all new Apple Pencil Pro. It says it's got new features for new next level creativity. So what's the big deal about this Apple Pencil?
Well, it's a there's like three different Apple pencils now. And I guess they have the best, which now this is going to be at the Pro, and then they have a medium one, and then they have a lower one, the lower price one. Good, better, best, right?
Yeah.
And this new one is supposed to be so great that I guess graphic artists need to be able to barrel their pen when they
Uh-huh.
do stuff. I'm not an artist, so I don't know. But then also too, another amazing thing, then your color palette. I think it shows up on the screen. You
Really?
hold it down, and yeah, and then you can move objects around and colors around and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's of course, so it's magnetic charge. You can charge it by just by putting on top of your iPad, things
Ah,
like that.
so it's not like the old ones where you had to plug it in via the lightning port.
Right. Yeah, Crystal, that's going to be all going away here pretty soon this fall with the USB-C.
Yeah.
Lightning be going away.
And then of course it looks like they released a new Magic keyboard.
Yeah, um, the keyboard it's kind of, the original was pretty kind of neat because it had a magnet on it, and you
Right.
could just it just slapped on there. And this one here, the mouse pad is much much bigger,
Yeah.
and they also put a row of function keys. So let's say, for example, you want to increase the brightness or increase the sound on your iPad. Now you don't have to go to settings or anything like that. You just go to the function keys, just like on a Mac.
Oh, okay. So it's actually more laptop-like in some ways.
Yeah, and 13-inch, a 13-inch iPad Pro with that keyboard, you basically got a Mac Air
Right.
or a lower price MacBook,
Right.
except the operating system's not exactly the same. I kind of believe, like my friend Jason Snell that I watch all the time, is that the software is always behind the hardware.
Right.
Okay, and iOS on the iPad, it needs some work. They've not really made a big jump in the software in the last, ever since they've had an iPad Pro. It's always been behind. There's a lot of stuff you can't do on the iPad Pro
Hmm.
or iPad, or because that you can do on the Mac. Well,
Right.
he kind of thinks now is that everything going to M4 is that they're going to scrub iOS altogether and just put Mac software on everything.
Ah, well, that would
It's
be
pretty much
interesting.
there now.
Yeah.
It's close now. Like there's apps on mine that I can go iOS or or Mac.
Yeah.
That's the reason why they came out with the silicon chip, right?
Right.
So I think what you may see, pretty soon you may see um, the operating system on an iPad get scrubbed and just go with a Mac system.
Right. Well, it's going to come in two colors, space black and what's the other color? Space black and some kind of silvery color.
Hmm.
They're not saying what the color, they like to call the color, let's see, space black. Ah, and silver. I guess I just had to
And
press the
so,
right button.
is there a purple? I thought maybe that's
No?
iPad Air.
Yeah, no. For the Pro, there's only space black
Okay.
and silver.
Yeah.
And of course, as you mentioned, there's a 11-inch model and a 13-inch model. It's 5.1 millimeters thin. And look at that, it's pretty thin. Look at that.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
pretty thin.
of course it's got the world's most advanced display, Ultra Retina XDR,
Hmm.
and it's got the nits that you talked about, 1000
Yeah.
nits and 1600 nits and let's see here. And of course, it's powered by the M4 chip. It's a silicon chip. It's 4 times faster than the M2, and it's 1.5 times faster than the M2 when it comes to CPU performance. Of course, it's going to be using iPad OS, and they talk about these workflows. I'm not really sure what all that's about. And of course, it'll be accompanied by the Apple Pencil Pro for anybody who wants to
Well,
buy
that's
that.
separate. I mean, you got to
That's
buy it
separate.
separate.
Right. That's separate. But
Yeah. Yeah.
basically, what they're saying is you want to get the Apple Pencil if you're going. And of course, the new Magic Keyboard with the function keys, as the person there is pointing.
Basically a regular Mac keyboard now.
Pretty
I
much.
mean,
That's what it looks like,
yeah.
right? And of course, it talks about the mics and the cameras. It says you can shoot, edit, and share all on one device with a professional camera system with LiDAR scanner,
Yeah,
studio
one
quality
of the big deals
mics.
too that everybody's excited about is that finally, after everybody griping about it, when you do FaceTime with an iPad, it's in portrait mode.
Ah,
Now they can do it in landscape mode. Now it comes in landscape mode.
well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yep. And of course,
And then
it's,
it's got center stage and all that stuff that goes along with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
Price is not the big deal is the price. They're not cheap. I think they raised the price on the 13-inch, I think $200
Right. I
in
believe
the
that
from the
it's
11.9 to $200. So
yeah.
like I said, $1,300 for an iPad Pro, and you throw a pencil in there, you're talking $129 or so. And then you throw a Magic Keyboard on top of that, you're talking $300 there. So pretty soon you're going to have a price of a MacBook.
I know. That's where I think sometimes the issue lies is it starts making people wonder whether they should get a Mac or whether they should invest in all these accessories to make the iPad act like a Mac, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it all depends how you're going to use it. Um,
Right. Right. And of
most people, the iPad Pro would be nice, but I mean, God, for that kind of money, you're almost better off getting a Mac Air.
right. Yeah. And of course it supports both Wi-Fi 6E and 5G.
Hmm. You'll still be able to buy a Wi-Fi version or a 5G version.
Now it says that you can get up to $580 with an Apple trade-in. I wonder what what machines qualify for the what models qualify for that trade-in.
I don't know.
Wonder if I could trade in my old iPad Pro here.
Probably could.
Probably could, right?
Ugh. You probably
Uh,
can't, I mean, but I don't know if Mama Salinas is going to let you have an iPad Pro.
I know. Tell me about it. And
Yeah.
of course, the other iPad in the news was the iPad Air. They're both
Yeah,
also,
they did a pretty good upgrade of that.
yeah, it says 11 inches and 13-inch models.
Hmm.
Yeah. And of course, that comes only with a liquid retina display. And it
Right.
is M2 based still.
Yeah, Apple does that. They wasn't going to make the iPad Air M4 also.
Yeah.
They want people to go out and buy the Pro,
Right.
and then maybe next year they'll upgrade it to the M4.
And of course, they talk about the new landscape front camera that you were mentioning.
Yeah, it's got center stage in it, and all that other stuff that goes along with it. The deal with the Pro or the iPad Air, the deal is that you know uh, movie studios and television studios or production companies can use that to shoot video on
Right.
now. Yeah.
And let's see here. Uh, yeah, let's talk about the graphics on the M2. And I guess you can also use the new Pencil Pro with the iPad Air.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's see here. Let's me go up. And it comes in a couple of colors. It comes in
That's what the purple
blue,
came in.
purple,
Yeah. Blue or purple.
starlight, whatever that means. It's kind of like a beige kind of color. And of course, traditional gray. And as we mentioned, it's actually two sizes, an 11-inch model and a 12-inch model. If you had a choice, Doug, would you consider an iPad Air today?
I tell you the truth, at the stage in my life right now,
Yeah,
I would be quite happy with just a regular iPad.
yeah,
I think and at that price point, I would be, since my phone's paid for now, I would be thinking about it. I always wanted an iPad Pro, but
yeah,
I never could pull that trigger for that much money.
yeah,
And but I had an iPad Air. Matter of fact, that iPad Air is still in circulation. I gave it to my grandson a couple years ago when I retired.
yeah,
I said, "Here, Jace," because I mean it was being retired, I was just sitting around the house, you know,
Well, the
and
biggest the
you know,
biggest thing for me on this iPad Pro that right now we're on is the fact that it is one of the earlier models, and I don't think I can go past the previous iOS. In other words, it's I can't upgrade it to the latest iPad OS. I have iPad OS on it. I just can't
yeah.
get the latest anymore, and I think
Well,
that's the bummer that happens with all of these devices, whether it's Apple or
but
even
you still get the security patches though.
right, right.
Yeah, you
You
still
know,
yeah. Apple's pretty good about there's a security patch that needs to be sent out. You know, they'll send that out to you
yeah.
on the older devices.
Yeah, I know
But
that a
I'm
lot of the biggest issue, because I know that it's happened on the Android side quite a bit, is the fact that if you continue to use an older model, your Google Play Store and now even your Apple Play Store may not have the apps for that older OS and older
hmm
iPad, and it's the same thing that happens on the other side as well, because they
but
want you to get
you
the new
know,
models, right? They want you to get the new stuff.
yeah, but you don't want to you don't want to end up like Microsoft because Microsoft they're supporting all these old PCs, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I think they finally ended what uh, 11 Windows 11. Did they finally end that or whatever?
No, not
Okay,
yet. They and
not
then
yet.
they ended up uh ending Windows 10 and of course the old XP, right? Because
Right.
everybody held
But
on to their XPs.
one of the problems Microsoft always had is that they had to support all these legacy
Yeah,
computers and stuff, and you know you got bugs and all that kind of stuff. Well, Apple they continue to move things along,
yeah,
and they last a long time. I
yeah.
mean, you know,
Well,
but the thing is that
I will say
everything's
that
got to
on
come.
yeah, I will say that they did get a little smart with Windows 11 because you can't install Windows 11 on a lot of older hardware. There's
Yeah,
something called a TPM chip that a lot of the newer Windows PCs have. And if your particular machine doesn't have TPM, you can't install it no matter what you do. And I ran into that on the Windows side. So it's getting better. The problem, as you know, is that a lot of people are happy with their old hardware because it works. It works
it
and it
works.
works.
And,
And it's kind of hard to
and,
dish out, the kind of money, like
yeah,
that.
and it's paid for too. It
And it's
works and it's
paid
paid
for.
for. So
That's right.
yeah, so I mean, but Apple especially, they got everything out of the Intel. They don't have anything on Intel anymore,
Right.
and so naturally they want everybody to go over to the silicon chip. So it saves them money because they don't have to support the old Intel chips, and they can just use the silicon. And I think it's pretty soon. It's getting there now. Mac OS and iOS, they're going to merge and have a baby.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's pretty close there now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
All right. Let's see what else is on the screen here. Give me a second. Well, of course, they talk about the Pencil Pro real quick.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
I've never really used a
$129,
pencil.
Doug. A
Yeah.
hundred.
$120. Yeah.
I
You can buy a
actually,
lot of groceries. You can buy a lot of groceries for $129.
well, I'm not sure about that.
I don't know about that
Bidenomics.
either. Yeah.
Well, I've got a pencil. I've got my daughter's got one of the original Pencil Pros, I think, or whatever it was, or
But she's an artist, though.
yeah. And then I've got her original pencil too. And now I don't know where in the world that thing is. I had it and it disappeared, but I really haven't gotten around to use it a whole lot as I expected to. It says
I
the
think
app.
there's a I think there's a connection between the iPad and the Vision Pro.
Yeah,
I think they're working so you can do something on your iPad and it shows up on your Vision Pro. I think I think I'm not sure, but I think I know David Sparks has tried using the pencil on his Vision Pro, and it sucks, he says.
Wow.
But yeah, but that was the old pencil. I
Right.
don't know how this pencil is going to work on the Vision Pro, but that's kind of. But I think if you can do everything on your iPad and it shows up on the Vision Pro, I think that's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, some of the features that they talk about with regards to the Pencil Pro, it's got the
Yeah, see that
squeeze
squeeze?
feature.
See that squeeze do?
Yeah. So it brings up a palette, a color palette that you talked about,
Yeah.
which includes
Yep.
line weights and colors. Well, that's a good feature because believe me, when you're trying to do that kind of stuff on a laptop or stuff like that, it's kind of annoying trying to find it. I know that I'm a big Photoshop person and try to
Mm-hmm.
find the multiple docs with different features all the time. It's a pain in the butt. I think Diva would attest to that. You know, and it's got something called barrel roll. It's a new gyroscope, allows you to rotate the Apple Pencil Pro for a precise control of a shape pen or brush tool. And then they've got a haptic feedback. It's a custom haptic engine, provides precise feedback that you can feel. When you squeeze or double tap, you'll feel a light pulse confirming the action. Wow. And then they've got some other feature. It's called the Apple Pencil Hover. Preview exactly where your Apple Pencil will touch down on your display so you can write, sketch, and illustrate with greater precision. And then double tap. Quickly switch between tools like a pen and an eraser. Well, that's a nifty thing too. You know, once again, if you're using something like Photoshop on a regular device, you got to press a button for the eraser feature, and you've got to press a button for the brush feature, and you've got to press another button for the shapes feature, and another one if you want to do gradients, and having this
Yes.
thing.
Yeah. Something else they talked about and they showed on the presentation, and I encourage people to go to the Apple TV. If you have Apple TV, or you can go to YouTube and you'll see the whole presentation. It's only, I think I said 28 minutes long, something like that. Is that they've redone Final Cut Pro.
Yeah,
So last year they put Final Cut Pro on the iPad, and it's got some. At least it made it on there. You can do a lot of stuff with it, but now they've got a thing called Final Cut Pro 2, and it's designed for the iPad. There's a lot more work that you can do with that now.
right. Well, the biggest curiosity, obviously, for me was what iPads is it compatible with? Because I know they pulled that one on the last generation of the Pencil that some people couldn't use it because they had an older model. So they came straight up and said which ones you can and which ones you can't. So an iPad Pro 12.9 incher, that's the third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth generation. So if you have one of those models, you'll be able to use the Apple Pencil Pro. If you have an iPad Pro, the 11-inch model, which is I think is what I have, first, second, third, and fourth generation. So heck, I could get one for this one, Doug. And then for the iPad Air, you got to have a fourth and fifth generation. And of course, the iPad Mini, sixth generation. So anybody with an original iPad or an iPad 2, or I think even an iPad 3 and 4, are out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
I still have an iPad 4 somewhere stuffed in a drawer somewhere.
I've got
And
an iPad 1. It's I boot it up every once in a while. I tell you who it belonged to. It belonged to Joel Torres,
ah,
and he said he didn't want it anymore, so he gave it to me, and I've had it for God 15 years.
wow.
Yeah.
And of course, if you don't want to dish out the $129, there's always the regular Apple Pencil available. It is USB-C, and that's for like $79.
Mm-hmm.
And by golly, they're still selling the first generation pencil. I wonder why they're still doing that, Doug.
There's always somebody, as Diva would say. There's always someone out there.
Yeah, yeah, there usually is, somebody out there. All right, let's see what else. And that's it. That was the big product releases.
That was it. Just they had to do something before WWDC,
Yeah. What do you
and
think's going to happen at WWDC? What do you think we're going to see?
I hear this iOS is going to be completely revamped.
Okay.
Yeah.
You think it's going to
I
be
don't think
like
they can.
iPad iOS? Oh, iOS. I'm sorry. iOS. Not iPad iOS. iOS.
iOS. They're supposed to revamp iOS. I think they may turn it over to maybe more Mac like.
Ah,
I don't
wow.
know, but Mac. So I kind of believe what Jason Snell says. The Mac software, the Mac is it's really mature and the software runs pretty good, and you can use it. You can do everything with it.
Yeah.
Well, the iPad, there's some things you just can't do.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and um, so
Any new phones on the horizon? Any new iPhones on the horizon?
well, they'll do one in September. You know,
You think
like they always do.
Apple will ever attempt at doing a foldable phone? I've seen a bunch of fake news out there, tech news, if you can believe that, where they've got this rendition of a of an iPhone that's a foldable. I mean, I don't know how true that is, or if it's just a bunch of
I don't.
BS.
I,
But
I can't see it for the near future because their their income is so based on the iPhone. They're
yeah,
not going to risk doing something that radical and you go crazy. You remember when the first Androids came out? I don't know, been about 5 years now. They came out and they broke in two and everything else. I don't
right,
think Apple. I don't think Apple. There's
right,
too much at risk. I mean, there's
yeah,
billions and billions of dollars at risk.
yeah. I
They're going
mean,
to take it slow and easy.
when Motorola came out with their original Razor, the first foldable, not the old Razor, right, the flip phone, but the new
Yeah,
ones, that was a problem. The screens would crack at the seam and so forth. And now, of course, they're a lot better. Samsung, I think, has their own foldable, but it took at least 4 or 5 years. You're right. It took that
five, 4 or
long
5 years.
to perfect the technology. I've
Yeah,
actually seen one recently, and for a few minutes there, I was like, God, that is kind of neat. It kind of gives you back a retro feel of, the old Star Trek days where they pulled out the communicator. Remember that? They pull out the communicator and so forth. But I don't know. It's kind of one of those things. I, I would like to see a foldable phone from Apple, but I can understand
I
why they're hesitant.
I think it's going to be something different. They, I think that when they're going to go with the old story is they're going to go with, you know, they're going to dance with the girl they brought with, to the dance
Yeah.
for as long as they can. But I think this is the reason why this Vision Pro came out is because I think they probably think working on maybe a pair of glasses.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And hopefully
Maybe,
something that resembles real glasses.
yeah. And maybe something like a James T. Kirk communicator. It's on your chest and you press a button and you can do everything you want to do. And then maybe a pair of glasses that actually show AR, can actually do phone calls, and you can do the same thing as a Vision Pro does, but without all the bulkiness, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they're headed.
Yeah.
Every time Apple does something, there's a step behind it. It's one step at a time. It's like they came out with the phone, the original iPhone, you couldn't do cut and paste and all that. So they eventually added that. And then they iPhone's pretty mature deal now, but they always on the camera, they always wanting to do something to the camera. And then
Right.
like when the watch came out, everybody said the watch was no, nobody wants a watch, you know. And then they came out and the first ones were not so great because they were trying to find the niche. They thought, well, you put a lot of apps on it. Well, the watch is too small for a bunch of apps. So
Right.
then they found out everybody was using it for the health device.
Right.
So they said that's when it took off. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, everybody's got an Apple Watch now.
Right.
And, just they just do, they're very logical in what they do, just step by step by step. It may
Right.
take them 5, 10 years to get something done, but, I eventually they're going to, when they do come up, it's usually pretty good.
Speaking of years, how much longer do you think Tim Apple's going to be at the helm of Apple? There's always been talk of retirement, but
Well,
I
I
don't
guess
know.
it all depends how much money his alma mater, what is it, Auburn?
Auburn University in
Yeah.
Alabama.
And yeah, he's giving them literally millions of dollars. And as a matter of fact, I think he's giving all his hair. When he dies, I think they're going to get a sizable chunk of it,
Wow.
an endowment. He lives very frugal.
Yeah.
You know, and I think he still lives in a townhome. I mean, he's probably driving a new car, but I mean, still, I mean, he lives very kind of frugal. And you don't see him any. He's mega. What was that thing in New York City where all these people paid the mega deal with all the rich? Well, they had the gala out there with all the fancy clothes and stuff, and it was
Right.
$75,000 a ticket or
Yeah.
something like that. You don't ever see him and that kind of stuff.
Well, it's kind of
You
interesting. Rich folks don't spend the kind of money that the poor folks do. The poor folks are always trying to you know,
Impress
impress
everybody. Yeah.
everybody. I mean, I don't know if you saw the posting a few weeks ago that I posted the desk that Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon has, when he first started Amazon,
Yeah.
he didn't
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
desk in the garage, right? That's where he started. Another garage famous story. But so what he did is he took a regular a house door, and he flattened it and put 2x4s on each side with braces. And that was his desk. And could you believe that that is the same desk he still has at home? It's ugly as hell. But for a guy that could buy any desk, even from
You
within
could buy
Amazon's,
you could buy the factory. He could
he
buy the
could
factory.
he could buy the
I mean,
factory, and he prefers. Oh, and by the way, he doesn't even have a. You know how you have those monitor shelves, that you put your monitor on top. No, he's not using that. He's using a couple of books. I mean, it's kind of like crazy, right? But
yeah, but he also has a submarine in his yacht too, though.
yes, that's true. I mean, it's kind of like Jobs. The story was that Jobs really never had any furniture in his house. It was very rare that he did. I mean, he had other things. He had, other things, but there's just some things they just didn't, you know, think about having, you know. Some of the comforts that we
Yeah.
consider to be comforts. So,
Yeah. Isaacson in the Jobs book, he goes in some detail about when Jobs and his wife got married, they were looking for furniture. I think they were looking for a oven or refrigerator for their kitchen. And, Jobs was so particular about things that they went all over the world trying to find the right, refrigerator or the oven, and they finally settled one in Germany and it took them like a year. They put it on order and they took that long to get it.
Well, it's
Like
the
a
same
year.
thing with Elon. Here's a guy that lives in a $45,000 house down at Starbase, carries a phone, and the only big thing he has now is that Gulfstream jet. But beyond that, he doesn't have a whole lot of anything else as far as, what some people would consider
So
luxury
does he land
items.
that Gulfstream out there at the Brownsville airport?
Yep, yep. Yeah, he lands in
Surprised he
Brownsville.
doesn't put an airstrip out there at Boca Chica.
Not sure there's enough room down there for something like that. But but yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, they all land there, so they probably get a lot of traffic, that we don't normally see. I mean, you see the normal commercial traffic, right? But I'm pretty sure there's a lot of private airplanes coming and going. That's for sure. But yeah, but Rich,
Well, I remember when they sold the former plant that you and I used to work into. They the owner sent his private jet down, and they all went down to someplace down in Mexico, and they cut the deal down there.
yeah,
They thought that was pretty cool.
yeah, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's just interesting, how some of those guys that have lots of money, it's interesting how what they put importance to and what they don't, you know.
Yeah, look at Warren Buffett. You know,
Yeah,
allegedly he goes to McDonald's every day and buys a
his $3
sausage sandwich.
breakfast.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, $3. Yeah,
His $3 breakfast, and he still lives in the same house that he bought in 1950 something, you know.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I can see it, you know. Yep. All righty, Doug. Well, it was a great
Okay.
episode today. We're really excited about WWDC coming up in June. We've got hopefully a podcast on Friday with your former employer. Hopefully, they will get their Starliner capsule up and running after that scrub on Monday. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't Boeing's fault, by the way. It was
My
not a
former employee on Friday.
Yeah. Huh? The Starliner, the Boeing Starliner.
Oh, Starliner. Oh yeah,
Yes,
they had they scrubbed Monday, didn't they?
they did. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
And
only
but it
behind
wasn't their
5 years
fault.
or 4 years.
Yeah, it wasn't Boeing's fault though. It was the ULA's fault. Apparently there was a valve issue with the Atlas 5.
I sure hope no more whistleblowers. Hope there wasn't a whistleblower involved. They might end up dead somewhere.
Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
hopefully that will happen on Friday evening. So we had a whole show planned for that, but we had to scrub that as well. And of course, as you know, the big interview happens on Monday with our congressional candidate for District 34, Ms. Mayra Flores, will be in the House. She'll spend an hour with me talking about herself and her
Wow.
campaign and
Are you taking questions now? I'll give you a long
the
list.
well, the I'm not taking any questions now, but the comments lines will be open, and of course, I'll be
Okay.
monitoring the questions and the comments. So, for anybody that's not nice, I have to monitor that kind of stuff. But that's an exciting, interview coming up here on Monday. So,
Uh, uh, allegedly she's raised more money than her opposition.
right, that is true. Especially, when the opposition is over there trying to take bribes from every foreign country they can get.
Well,
It,
that's Quaylar though, isn't it?
yes, yes, it is Quayer.
But that's not our competition though. It's what's his name is.
Vicente?
Yeah, they sent us down
Well,
here.
they
That's a
say that Vicente is also probably doing the same thing that Cuellar is doing.
I wouldn't be surprised. Why is there so many banks in Brownsville? Why is there so many brick and mortar banks in Brownsville?
I don't know.
I think you know the reason.
You Oh
Most
well.
most most places, brick and mortar banks are going away.
Right.
They're either doing everything online or they're putting it in grocery stores or something, and they're just having little small branches in grocery stores. but
And
not in Brownsville. They're building. It seems like they're building a new car wash and a new bank every day.
yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
All righty, Doug. Well, that is it for tonight. That is it for tonight, everybody. Stay tuned for the upcoming podcasts. Doug, we'll probably have another Doug's Dugout this weekend. So,
Boy, we've got some. I got some news to tell you, man.
all right. Well, we'll save it for Sunday. We'll save it for
We
Sunday.
lost our catcher. Our catcher broke his arm last night.
That's not good. That's not good.
No. Yeah.
All righty, everybody. Well, that's it for tonight. Everybody, have a good evening. Doug, once again, as always, thank you. And we will see you in a few days.
Okay, guys. See you later. Thanks for the
Alrighty.
pleasure of meeting with you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
We off the air?
Getting there.
I mean, when you don't have a hot mic.
Give me a second.